Today, we're diving into what might just be the most detailed, the most specific, and honestly, the most shocking prophecy in the entire Bible. We're talking about the final vision of the prophet Daniel.
But first, just imagine this for a second. What if you were shown a perfect, crystal clear blueprint of the next 400 years of world history? I mean, every single major king, every war, every backstabbing betrayal, all of it laid out right in front of you.
Well, that is exactly what happened to the prophet Daniel. He was given a vision so intense, so overwhelming, that it completely shattered him physically. The text says he was left with absolutely no strength, his face turned a deathly pallor, and then he just collapsed into a deep sleep. So what in the world did he see that had such a powerful effect? Let's break down this absolutely overwhelming final vision. And get this, before he even gets the actual message, Daniel's already been mourning for 3 straight weeks. Then, standing by the Tigris River, this incredible being appears to him, its face like lightning, its eyes like flaming torches. Can you imagine? The sight is so terrifying that Daniel just loses all his strength and passes out. This extreme reaction, it just tells you how heavy the message is that he's about to receive. So, what was this earth-shattering message that literally knocked him off his feet? Well, when you boil it down, the vision is nothing less than a blueprint of history. The vision, which you can read in chapter 11, feels like a history book written in advance. Seriously, it kicks off with Persia, predicting 3 more kings, and then a 4th. Then, boom, it moves to Greece and a mighty king who will arise. A super clear reference to Alexander the Great. After he dies, the kingdom shatters into 4 parts. And this leads to decades and decades of war between the Ptolemies down in the south, that's Egypt, and the Seleucids up in the north, in Syria. The level of detail here is just staggering. But then, just as you're taking in this huge, wide-angle view of clashing empires, the prophecy suddenly zooms in. It focuses like a laser on one specific notorious figure, the despicable king. The prophecy just zeroes in on this one guy, the Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes, and the text itself calls him the despicable person. This is where the vision stops being about distant empires and gets incredibly personal and incredibly brutal. So, in 1670 BC, Antiochus unleashes this full-scale assault on the Jewish faith. He storms into Jerusalem, he outlaws their core religious practices, things like keeping the Sabbath, reading scripture, circumcision, and then he does the unthinkable. He desecrates the holy temple itself by setting up an altar to Zeus inside it. This is what's known as the abomination of desolation. It was a crisis so profound, it literally split the Jewish people between those who collaborated just to survive and those who chose to become martyrs. Okay, so this stunning, down-to-the-detail accuracy brings us to the central mystery of the whole book. How? How could it possibly know all this stuff? Is this genuine, see-the-future prophecy, or is it history, cleverly disguised? Now, this question brings us to a really important idea that scholars talk about, ex eventu prophecy. It's a Latin term, and it basically means prophecy from the event. It's a literary technique where someone writes about things that have already happened, but they frame it as if they're predicting the future. So this leads to 2 main ways of looking at the book of Daniel. You've got the traditional view, which says, yep, this is the real deal. It's genuine prophecy written by Daniel way back in the 6th century BC, and its crazy accuracy is proof that it's from God. But then you have the critical view, which suggests it was written by an anonymous author in the 2nd century BC, right in the middle of the crisis with Antiochus. On this view, the author used the famous respected name of Daniel to recount past history as prophecy, all to give his persecuted people hope that God was still in control. So you see, 2 very different answers to the same puzzle. But just when you think you kind of got it figured out, the prophecy takes a wild, sharp turn. It shifts from what looks like history to the end of all things. Right at verse 36 of chapter 11, the details just stop matching the historical record of Antiochus. The king in the vision suddenly becomes this cosmic, larger-than-life figure who magnifies himself above every god. The language just explodes beyond any single historical king. So how do interpreters make sense of this pivot? Well, a lot of them use this really cool idea called prophetic telescoping. Think of it like looking at 2 mountain peaks from really far away. They look like they're right next to each other, but there's actually a massive valley in between them. So first, the prophet sees a near historical figure, that's Antiochus IV, but then the description expands into these huge cosmic terms, and that historical bad guy becomes a pattern or a symbol for a much bigger, far future end times events. So all of this, the detailed history, the intense suffering, the deep mystery, it's all building to one place. It's building toward the vision's ultimate purpose, to deliver a profound, world-changing promise. After all the war, all the suffering, all the persecution, the vision delivers its final, absolutely stunning payload. It promises that many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, these to everlasting life, but others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. This is one of the clearest, most explicit statements on bodily resurrection in the entire Old Testament. It's a promise that in the end, true justice will be served. Now, does the book tie up every single loose end? Absolutely not. It leaves us with these mysterious time periods, like 1,335 days, and scholars and commentators have been scratching their heads over these for centuries. But here's the real takeaway. The details are debated, the promise is not. The angel basically tells Daniel, look, go on your way. These words are sealed up until the end. The point was never to create a perfect, easy-to-read chart of the future. The point was to deliver a rock-solid message of ultimate hope and final justice. And that leaves us with a final thought, one that echoes just as loudly today. In a world that is so often full of suffering and pain and injustice, what is the power of a promise that in the end, everything will be made right?